Okay then folks, I've come to a little beach near St Mary's Lighthouse, and as you can see the tide is quite a way in, but on this bit of beach you'll find massive piles of seaweed, and this is where I'm going to be picking the seaweed that I'm going to use for some raised garden beds in the allotment. And I'm going to aim for the beds to be around about 3 foot in height, so I'm going to bulk out the bottom foot of the bed with some seaweed, and then I'm going to backfill with some well rotted horse manure and straw mixed with some green materials and some browns. So that'll be in the form of cutback stinging nettles, some comfrey, grass clippings, and then mix in some shredded autumnal leaves and also some shredded cardboard, shredded newspaper, coffee from Starbucks, which they're happy to give you, and some ground up eggshell to bring the worms in and get them venturing into the centre of the bed. And then I'm going to put a nice layer of some chopped up vegetable scraps and the cutbacks from the squash and the pumpkins over the course of the winter, and then I'll top that off with some well rotted garden compost, and then a final layer of some soil out of a vermiculture bin I've got down at the garden, and that'll give us a bed that's 3 foot in height. And then it's just a case of allowing it to mature, and then I'll have a really nice tall raised bed to plant some plants into with a really nice substrate to boot. So the seaweed that I'm looking for is the more flimsy looking material, so stuff that rots down quite quickly like this. And there is some thicker material like the stuff that you see right here. There's a little bit of plastic right there, so I'm just going to make sure that I take that home so it doesn't go into the sea. But this is the seaweed that I'm going to be using, some more flimsy material like this. So I'm just going to have to sift through it and get out the stuff that I want. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. See the nice green flimsy stuff there and the more flimsy material there, as opposed to this thicker, more rubbery stuff here. It just rots down a lot quicker, and the soil organisms and the worms can help to break it down and use up all that lovely trapped in nutrients and goodness from the sea right there. So I'm going to go through it, and I've got some bags over there that I'm going to use to put the seaweed into, and I'm just going to have to sift through all of this and pick out the material that I want. And as you can see, I'm finding a really nice amount of it already. So there's a little pile there, and I'm just going to go through it and select the more finer material to put in the bottom of the bed after I've rinsed it off with the hose, and then that'll be the seaweed at the bottom of my raised bed that I'm going to make. And I'm going to put a little sketch on my community post for you to have a look at, so if you're interested in that, please have a look. And it's something that I've done before, and I'm going to piece together so I can use it for a good few years, or hopefully longer, to grow some nice vegetables in. And as time goes by, when the levels of the soil drops, I can just add some nice mature garden compost on the very top, and that'll replenish the bed over the course of a winter as it's allowed to break down and work its way in there. But building up the soil can be done quickly if you use stuff like seaweed and stuff that worms eat up, as well as your own garden compost and some vermiculture soil, which I'm going to give you a little insight and a look at the allotment when I'm down there, and show you some of the soil that I'm going to be using. But for today, I've got to get through getting some lovely seaweed. Check out the dog here, just chewing this up. What's that you got, Ginny? But yeah, got to get some lovely seaweed and fill up my bags, and then I'll have some lovely seaweed material to get us started with these raised beds that I'm going to make. And if you think outside the box and use what the world can offer, then you can achieve really cool things. And being 3 foot in height, it'll mean that any plants that are in the summit will benefit from the really lovely material that I've added in the first and second foot of the bed, and it'll all be broken up by the soil organisms and the worms, and they'll do the digging and incorporating the lovely nutrients and goodness around the bed for us. So that's my plan today. Get some lovely seaweed as a bulking up agent, and I'm also going to keep some back to add some composting areas, because the high nutrient content and the nutritional value of seaweed is a great thing to add to composting situations, and it can supply you with some lovely nitrogen as well as loads of other trace elements, which ultimately mixed with some greens and browns and scraps from the kitchen at home in the form of vegetable scraps, and also grass clippings, stinging nettles, and all of the stuff that I've just mentioned, and that then creates heat and you get some nice composting going on. So seaweed, great for composting situations. So I'm going to get on with collecting up my seaweed from all of these lovely piles that you see here and get me bags filled up. I'll put some pictures on the community posts of what I've collected today.